Hey, this Bierker with Jimi Hendrix behind me here. I got that as a watercolor back in, man, when I was about 19 years old, 1983. I used to work at a restaurant called Steak and Ale down towards Philly, and my brother was one of the cooks there, and he worked with another cook who was an artist, and he did a beautiful watercolor painting of Jimi Hendrix. So there you go. It's beautiful. I held on to that even after becoming an evangelical Christian. I couldn't throw it away. I got rid of a lot of stuff, but I'm like, I can't throw Jimmy away. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful triple IPA. Let's see if I get a little more scale on it so you can see it. One of the joys of home brewing, besides the craft of it, and it's not hard, but it's fun, is brewing beers that would cost a lot more if you bought them at a distributor, if you could even find them. Some of the beers that I brew, like this triple IPA, you can find it maybe with like Dogfish 90. That's technically a double. A triple's fairly hard to find, or a wee heavy, which I brewed recently. Even a Belgian wit. You can find certain categories of a Belgian wit, but one of the problems is if you do like Blue Moon or something, it's not bottle carbonated, which means that has a shelf life on it. So that Belgian wit, which is supposed to be continuing to get better, actually gets worse the longer it waits in the refrigerator. And it really can flatten out and not turn into a good beer. So home brewing, you get typically at 5-gallon kits. It can run from as low as maybe $25 for a 5-gallon kit. Northern Brewer, which is owned by InBev, tends to be underpriced to the market. So you can get really affordable and good kits from Northern. It used to be a private company or a company that was not, it was independently owned. And then InBev snapped it up. And as a rule, I stay away from them because I just don't want to support InBev because it's ultimately going to be bad for the business in general for craft beer. But I did buy a wee heavy kit from them because it's hard to find. So I will make exceptions if they have a kit that I can't find elsewhere. This most recent triple IPA actually started off as a double IPA, and then I just hopped it more, and I also put more corn sugar in it, and gave it a little bit more time. I'm a little bit off the charts when I do that, and I've had some less than favorable experiences. I mean, it turned out okay in the long haul when I've done it, but the timing factor can be a little bit messed up when you start to go off the grid and you're not following the recipe anymore and you're putting more sugar in it, more hops. It throws the composition off and it throws the metrics off. So whatever specs were on the kit originally have changed. So then I try to find maybe a kit that would resemble the kit that I decided to make, like a triple IPA, and what should the final gravity be and all that kind of stuff. But a triple IPA case would probably run you about $75, maybe $70, maybe a little 65, depending on where you go. So I was able to get this kit for 50 something. Had to change the yeast on it because the yeast had expired in transit because the heat had triggered it. So I had to use the champagne yeast on this, which wasn't bad because it's a high alcohol beer. And I have to say, this triple IPA has really, really turned out well. One of the things I did as a kind of a compromise, whenever you increase the ABV on a beer through like the addition of corn sugar or malted barley, if that's where you go, is that it's going to carbonate more, and it's going to take longer to carbonate and ferment, first of all, but carbonate second. And if you've gone off kit, you have to be careful that the original metrics are no longer accurate, like I mentioned. And so the way I compensated this time is I just added an extra inch to the neck in terms of the pour when I went from the secondary fermenter into the 12-ounce bottles. Rather than leave 1 inch of space in the bottles, I had 2. And so I had actually a tape measure out, a Stanley tape measure that I was using to be really accurate. Have not had a single bottle blow up, which is awesome. With the high alcohol that's here, it's probably about 11%. Carbonation is fine. It's a little bit on the lower end, but which is good. It's no problem. It doesn't need a huge head if it's an IPA. So that was not a huge disappointment. It's just a compromise because losing a bottle when it blows up, it's not just about the bottle. It's about how you packaged it. So if it's in a case of other bottles, it's going to mess everything up. You know, there's glass everywhere. There's liquid. It's sticky. It's nasty. I was thinking about getting some wooden cases or something to put those bottles in because it provides a little more stability. And if the glass busted, it would not shatter other bottles or cause as much damage to other bottles. But that's a real problem when you bottle ferment, is that it's live. It's volatile. It's like a mousetrap that you have to set. And it's explosive to some degree. And when it blows, it really blows. It's not just the cap comes off. The cap is the last thing that will come off because that's a hard seal. What will happen is the bottle will break. And depending on how volatile it is, it could really cause a lot of damage. Make it lose an eye or something. So this triple IPA turned out really well. I am brewing a Belgian double right now, which I got from Amazon. It's a company I've never heard of before, but it was an incredible price, $45 for a Belgian double, which I turned into a quad by adding corn sugar to. So that has to ferment for a month, which is a little bit on the high side, but it's a little bit lower temperature in terms of fermenting. So the yeast is comfortable from 65 to like 75. The 75 is pretty typical. It's a little high, but 70 is pretty usual. This yeast actually preferred the 65 or 65 to 70 range, which means it's going to ferment slower because it's less active. It's a little bit like a lager in that way, but not really. It's still an ale. It's just a lower temperature yeast. So yeast is a very fascinating topic. So I'm heading up to 7 minutes here, but this triple IPA, man, it turned out great. I threw hops in from my garden. I threw hops in from my buddy's garden. I threw in hops from the kit. And the way that I put my hops in was in a hop canister. It's a stainless steel kind of tube with stainless steel mesh along the cylinder. So it's like a tea bag principle. And so I dunked it in there at the end of the mash, at the end of the boil, for about 10 minutes, and I pulled it out. Too much hops is overpowering, but this turned into be like a really good hiking, because whenever you hike the sugar or the malt, you probably should also hike the hops to make it a balanced brew. So that's about it. Nice chat with y'all. Have a fantastic Sunday.